Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about something that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, giving ourselves the superpower to see our world in ways that are totally impossible for the human eye. We're going to talk about how we can basically X-ray our entire planet, all the way from space. Okay, let's get into it.
But to really wrap your head around this, let's start with a puzzle. Picture this. There's a huge flood. The water is muddy, it's covering miles and miles of land, and to make matters worse, there are thick clouds overhead. So how on earth can you map exactly what's going on while it's all still happening? It seems like it can't be done, right? Well, this is exactly the kind of problem we can now solve from orbit.
So, the answer, and you probably guessed this, isn't magic. It's all about physics. The real key here is learning to see the world not just in the colors we're used to, but in types of light that are completely invisible to us.
You see, what our eyes see as light is just this tiny, tiny sliver of a much bigger reality called the electromagnetic spectrum. It's this massive range of energy, everything from long, stretched-out radio waves to tiny, super-energetic gamma rays. And our satellites, unlike our eyes, are built to see across this whole range. They can see in infrared, in microwave, and that is where all the secrets are hidden. Okay, so if seeing in these other wavelengths is our superpower, how do we actually use it to tell things apart on the ground? Well, it turns out that every single thing on Earth, we're talking water, soil, trees, even buildings, interacts with this energy in its own special way. It's almost like they each leave behind a unique fingerprint.
And in the world of remote sensing, this is what the pros call a spectral signature. It's that unique pattern of energy that an object either reflects or gives off. And just like a human fingerprint, a spectral signature is one of a kind. A healthy cornfield has one signature, a concrete parking lot has another, and a body of water has a totally different one. This is the key to the whole thing. If you can read that fingerprint, you know what you're looking at, even from hundreds of kilometers away.
And this is where it gets really, really useful. So let's take a healthy plant. In the visible light our eyes can see, it soaks up red and blue light for photosynthesis, right? So it doesn't reflect a whole lot. But, and this is the cool part, in near-infrared light, a wavelength we can't see, that same plant is incredibly bright. It reflects a ton of it. Now look at water. It's the exact opposite. It absorbs almost all near-infrared energy, making it look super dark. And just like that, a satellite can instantly tell the difference between a lush forest and a lake.
So, to capture all these different fingerprints, we've got a whole toolkit of different sensors orbiting the Earth right now. You can think of them as specialized detectives, where each one is designed to look for a very specific kind of clue.
We can basically group them into three main types. First up, you've got the photographers. These are like super-powered digital cameras capturing reflected light. Then there are the thermometers, which don't see light at all. They see heat. And finally, you have the 3D surveyors. These are a little different, because they actively send out their own energy to map the world's shape.
Let's start with the photographers. We're talking about systems like the famous Landsat satellites. They snap images in a bunch of different colors, or bands, all at once, including that super important near-infrared. This is the absolute workhorse for things like monitoring global agriculture, tracking deforestation, and mapping how our landscapes are changing over the decades.
Then you've got the thermometers. These sensors are all about measuring the heat that radiates off the Earth's surface. They're not looking at sunlight bouncing off things. They're literally seeing the thermal energy that everything gives off. This lets us do incredible things, like spot the hidden heat of a dormant volcano, track a wildfire's path right through thick smoke, or even figure out which buildings in a city are leaking the most heat.
And that brings us to the 3D surveyors, like radar. Now these are active sensors. They don't just passively wait for the sun. They create their own light by sending out pulses of microwave energy. And because those microwaves can slice right through clouds and work day or night, they are the perfect tool for our flood puzzle from the beginning. This is exactly how we map a flood as it's happening, no matter what the weather is doing.
Okay, so we've got these amazing tools, and they're collecting just unimaginable amounts of data. But you know, collecting data is only the first step. The real magic happens when we turn all those raw numbers into real-world, actionable intelligence. Think about this number for a second. 977 square kilometers. That's not just some random figure.
That is the immense area of the Zaka fire in California. That's an area bigger than New York City. And that entire disaster was detected, tracked, and mapped using thermal satellite data. For the firefighters on the ground, that kind of information is an absolute lifeline, telling them exactly where the fire is and, more importantly, where it's going next. Or, here's another example. When a tornado hits, you hear it rated on the news on the enhanced Fujita scale. And that scale is based entirely on the damage it leaves behind. You know, an EF4 is devastating damage, and EF5 is incredible damage. But how do you assess that damage quickly and safely over a huge, chaotic area?
Well, you look from space. After Monster F4 tornado tore through Hayesville, Kansas, high-resolution satellite images gave first responders an immediate bird's-eye view of the entire disaster zone. They could see the tornado's exact path of destruction, pinpointing which homes were leveled and which roads were blocked, helping them guide rescue efforts way faster than teams on the ground ever could alone.
So far, we've been looking at the Earth's surface pretty much in 2D. But what if we could take it a step further? What if we could build a complete 3D model of the landscape, right down to the actual ground underneath the forests?
Well, that's where LiDAR comes in. LiDAR is another one of those active sensors, but instead of radio waves, it uses pulses of laser light. It fires thousands of these pulses every second and then precisely measures how long they take to bounce back. And by doing that, it can map the elevation of the terrain with just mind-blowing precision.
But the real genius of LiDAR is this thing called multiple returns. So imagine one laser pulse leaves the sensor. The first thing it hits might be the very top of a tree, and a little bit of that light bounces back. But some of that pulse keeps going. It's a branch lower down and sends another little reflection back. And then maybe a final piece makes it all the way to the forest floor and sends one last return. By timing all these different returns, LiDAR can digitally strip away all the vegetation and show us the true shape of the ground underneath. It's incredible.
And that ability is a total game changer. I mean, the source material calls it one of the most revolutionary aspects of LiDAR remote sensing. And it's true. It's opened up entirely new possibilities in forestry, allowing us to measure the volume of an entire forest from the air, and even in archaeology, where entire lost cities have been discovered hiding under the jungle canopy.
So, where does all this lead? What's the end game? Well, all of this amazing data, from the photographers, the thermometers, the 3D surveyors, it doesn't just sit in separate folders. It all gets fed into something called a Geographic Information System, or GIS. You can think of the GIS as the master brain that layers and analyzes all this information together.
And what this all builds toward is something truly astonishing. Remote sensing provides the eyes for a living, breathing digital model of our planet, what some people are starting to call a digital twin. With a model like this, we can monitor changes in our environment in near real time, we can model what-if scenarios for things like floods or fires, and at the end of the day, we can make much, much smarter decisions for a sustainable future. So, we started with a simple question about a flood, and we've ended up with a digital copy of our entire world. It's a technology that has completely changed how we see and understand our home planet, which leaves us with one last question to think about. As this incredible view from space gets even clearer, even more powerful, what's the one global challenge you would want to solve first? Thanks for joining us.